Once there was a woodcutter with two children and their stepmother. The boy's name was Hansel, and the girl's name was Gretel. They lived so poorly that sometimes there was not even anything to eat. And then one evening he lay in bed, pondering how to feed the children further. His wife advised him to have children in the forest, light a fire, give a piece of bread each and leave them there, not all four of them die of hunger. But the woodcutter did not agree. And until then, his wife persuaded him that he finally agreed. And the children, because of hunger, also could not sleep and heard everything that their stepmother said to their father. And when the parents fell asleep, Hansel secretly rushed out of the house. The moon was shining brightly, and the white stones glittered like coins. Hansel pocketed as many of them as he could fit. Then he returned home and the children went to bed. In the morning, the stepmother came to the children, gave each of them a piece of bread, and they all went to the forest together. On the way, Hansel threw out white stones one by one. When they arrived at the clearing, my father began to light a fire. He ordered the children to sit near the fire and make sure that it didn't go out, while they and their stepmother would go for more firewood. They sat, tired, and fell fast asleep. When the children woke up, it was a dark night all around. And when a full month had risen in the sky, Hansel took his sister by the hand and went, looking for the way through the pebbles, which glittered like new coins, and showed them the way. They walked all night long, and at dawn they came to their father's house. Some time passed, and the children again heard how the stepmother one night began to beg their father to get rid of the children. He refused, but his wife did not want to listen to him. She cursed and expressed all sorts of reproaches to him. When the parents fell asleep, Hansel, like the last time, wanted to collect stones, but the stepmother locked the door and the boy could not leave the house. Early in the morning, the children were given a piece of bread each, even less than the previous time. On the way to the forest, Hansel shredded his piece in his pocket and threw the crumbs on the ground. The stepmother took them even further into the forest. Again a big fire was lit, and the father ordered the children to watch the fire while they and their stepmother chopped some more wood. When lunchtime came, Gretel shared her piece of bread with Hansel. And they fell asleep. We woke up when the dark night fell. And then a month came up, and they got together on their way, but they could not find a single crumbs, because thousands of birds fluttering in the forest had long been eating those crumbs. So the children walked for a very long time, but they could not get out of the forest. Suddenly, the road led them to the hut. Coming closer, the children saw that the house was all built of bread and biscuits, and the windows were made of pure sugar. Hansel reached up and broke off a piece of the roof, while Gretel went to the window and began gnawing at its windows. And then the door in the hut opened wide, and the old woman came out, leaning on a crutch. Hansel and Gretel were so scared that they even dropped their tidbits from their hands. And the old woman was kind and invited them to her hut. There was already abundant food on the table: milk, cookies, apples, and nuts. After dinner, the old woman made 2 clean beds for the children, and Hansel and her sister thought they were in heaven. But the old woman only pretended to be affectionate, but in fact she was an evil witch, who built her bread hut for this purpose in order to lure children. Early in the morning, while the children were sleeping, she took Hansel and put him in a small cage. And she ordered her sister to do everything that the wicked witch demanded of her. The old woman decided to fatten the boy in order to eat him later. So Gretel began to cook the most delicious food for Hansel, and she herself got nothing but leftovers. Some time passed, and the boy did not get fat. Then the old woman did not want to wait any longer, and decided to cook and eat Hansel. She ordered Gretel to light the stove and apply water. When the stove warmed up, the old woman ordered her to climb into the stove and see if it was hot enough. So she wanted to push the girl into the fire and bake her. But Gretel knew what was on her mind. She said that she did not know how to get in there, and asked the witch to show herself. The old woman got angry and climbed into the oven. Then Gretel pushed her and slammed the shutter behind the witch. Wow, how terribly the old woman hauled them. Gretel, meanwhile, rushed to Hansel and opened the cage. Having freed their brother, they went to the witch's room, in which there were boxes of pearls and precious stones in all corners, filled their pockets with them, and went home. For several days the children were looking for their way back. The forest seemed more and more familiar, and at last they saw their father's house in the distance. How glad he was to see his children alive. Hansel and Gretel poured on the floor all the pearls and gems they had taken from the witch. There was no need to think about food. And they began to live, live, and rejoice. And the father drove the evil stepmother out of the house. A long time ago, in the desert kingdom of Agrabah, there lived a poor guy Aladdin with his monkey Abu. To survive, he had to steal food from the market. But despite this, Aladdin was kind and honest, because he handed out everything stolen to starving children. One day, while walking through the city, Aladdin noticed how an apple merchant was threatening a young girl. She gave an apple to the child without asking, and now she had to pay. Seeing that the seller called the guards, Aladdin decided to save the girl. He took her hand and helped her hide. But the guards still caught up with the fugitives. And it turned out that the girl Aladdin saved was Princess Jasmine. The guards imprisoned the guy in a dungeon. That same night, the evil advisor of the Sultan Jafar made his way to his cell. He promised untold riches if Aladdin helped him get him a magic lamp from the Cave of Wonders. And Aladdin agreed. Jafar took the guy with the monkey to the cave, but in front of the entrance forbade him to touch anything except the lamp. In the cave, Aladdin found a magic carpet and a lamp. But Abu could not stand the prohibition and touched one of the rubies. The cave began to collapse. Then the magic carpet caught them and flew away to the ruins of the ruined castle. Aladdin looked for a long time at the lamp that he had brought with him from the Cave of Wonders. She was very dusty. When Aladdin wiped the lamp with his hand, Jinn burst out of it. He announced to Aladdin that he had been in the lamp for many years, and for his salvation he could fulfill any 3 wishes. Aladdin promised to use only 2 wishes, and the third to free Jinn from the lamp forever. Looking at the stars, Aladdin remembered the princess. He fell in love with Jasmine, but an ordinary thief could not impress the princess. Then Aladdin spent his first wish to become a prince. Arriving at the palace to the Sultan, Aladdin in the guise of a prince tried to win the heart of Jasmine. But the princess was adamant, because she had long fallen in love with the commoner who saved her at the bazaar. Meanwhile, Jafar noticed the false prince in the palace. The evil advisor tricked the guy into the tower, and with threats began to elicit where the magic lamp was. Receiving no answer, Jafar pushed him from the high tower into the sea. Suddenly, Abu flew in with a lamp on the rug, and Aladdin managed to rub it. Then Jinn appeared and saved them, thereby using the second wish. Back at the palace, Aladdin told the Sultan that Jafar is an evil wizard who is about to betray the kingdom. The Sultan arrested his advisor, but under cover of night the sorcerer managed to get out of the dungeon. He made his way into Aladdin's chambers and stole the lamp, becoming Jinn's new owner. Jafar spent his first desire to become a sultan. And with the second desire, he requested the power of the most powerful wizard in the world. Having received his, Jafar magically transported the guy with the monkey to the icy wasteland. And he decided to force Princess Jasmine to marry himself. While the wedding ceremony was going on, the magic carpet found out where Aladdin and Abu were, and then returned them to the castle. Seeing Jafar, Aladdin began to tease him, calling him the second in power after Jinn. Then an angry Jafar spent his last wish to become an almighty genie. Turning into a genie, Jafar suddenly became a slave to the lamp himself. Weakening, he promised Aladdin revenge. But before he could finish his curses, the lamp pulled him inside. Jinn carried Jafar's lamp to the Cave of Wonders, and order was restored to the kingdom. Aladdin decided to keep his promise, so he spent his third wish to free Jean from the lamp forever. And the Sultan, who saw that Aladdin and Jasmine were in love, allowed them to get married. And they lived happily ever after, and the kingdom of Agrabah only prospered over the years.